It's a hot summer day, and you want a cool, tasty beverage with absolutely no sugar or carbs anywhere in sight. And water simply will not do. So you reach for a Diet Coke, but then notice the bottle of Coke Zero Sugar next to it. And that's when the confusion sets in. Which should you get? Is one better than the other? Is there even a difference? Well, today we're weighing in on whether Coke Zero Sugar is better for you than Diet Coke. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History Food channel. After that, please leave a comment and let us know what other soft drinks you would like to hear about. Okay, now, when is Diet Coke going to do another commercial with Batman? The first diet soda was called Diet Right, and it was released in 1958. Its success convinced the other major soda brands that they needed competing products. But the biggest of those brands, Coca-Cola, had some reservations. You see, at the time, Coke had a strict policy against using its name on anything but its flagship product. So when they did decide to enter the diet soda market in 1963, they did it with a product called Tab.
We call it Tab. Just Tab.
Their chief competitor, Pepsi, got into the fray the following year. But unlike Coke, Pepsi was brave enough to put its name on its product, which it called Diet Pepsi. And thanks to that name recognition, Diet Pepsi regularly outsold Tab. Not used to being second at anything, Coke realized it would have to change things up. And in 1982, it finally took the plunge and released the soda we all now know as Diet Coke.
Introducing Diet Coke.
But despite the name, Diet Coke wasn't really a diet version of Coke. It was actually based on the formula for Tab. As a result, it had a noticeably different flavor profile than the company's flagship brand, which not everyone loved. The weird taste notwithstanding, however, Diet Coke was a massive hit. At least it was with the ladies. Over the decades, Coca-Cola spent a boatload of cash trying to market Diet Coke to men, but it never really worked out. That's partially due to the fact that at the time, diet products had primarily been marketed to women, because in certain circles, diet products have long been viewed as being inherently feminine. Even the design of the can was perceived by some as not masculine enough. Eventually, someone at Coke realized that if they were going to get the menfolk on board, they were going to need a whole new product with a whole different image. To that end, Coke Zero hit stores in 2005. And despite the fact that they were trying to position it as an alternative to Diet Coke, they initially decided to package it in a similarly white-colored can and marketed it with the tagline, "Everybody chill," which was weird considering they were trying to get people excited about it. Luckily, Coca-Cola New Zealand decided to start from scratch. For starters, they redesigned the packaging, so it was a nice, manly black color. And for the Australian launch, the company chose a new tagline, "Real Coca-Cola taste and 0 calories," and an irreverent new ad campaign. One commercial depicted Coke executives trying to sue Coke Zero for stealing the taste of their product.
So then do you think that we, as the Coke brand, would have a case against the Coke Zero brand?
And another early spot featured NFL star Troy Polamalu recreating Coke's iconic 1979 Mean Joe Green commercial, only to get waylaid by the same executives. Along with commercials tying the brand to the James Bond film Quantum of Solace and Disney's Tron Legacy, the message to the public became increasingly clear. Coke Zero is for cool dudes. The product became so popular so quickly, some inside Coke began to fear it was cannibalizing sales of Diet Coke, and even their flagship brand. After some minor marketing stumbles, Coke Zero became a massive success. And as the conventional wisdom goes, if something's not flat, stop trying to add bubbles to it. But even though its sales continued to climb, in 2017, Coke decided that Zero still needed some fixing. That tinkering entailed both a reformulation and a rebranding. Coke Zero's recipe was altered to make it taste even more like regular Coke. And the product got a new name, Coke Zero Sugar, despite the fact that adding more words to something is the least manly thing you can do. The new moniker was meant to emphasize that the product had no sugar in it. Coke Zero purists hated the idea and took to comparing all the changes to the New Coke debacle of 1985. If you're too young to remember New Coke, don't ask. But this time around, despite some grumbling from loyal consumers, Coca-Cola turned out to be right. For one thing, the formula wasn't all that different.
Is it the best Coke ever?
In fact, the ingredient list on the can didn't change at all, indicating it was just the relative amounts of some of the ingredients that were altered. Consequently, the change in taste was so slight that most people would probably never notice it. As for the new name, well, to paraphrase Shakespeare, a Coke Zero by any other name would taste as sweet. And that even applies down under in Australia, where the product was given the weirdly on-the-nose name, Coca-Cola No Sugar. But hey, at least they were done making changes, right? Not quite. In 2021, the company announced they were changing the formula for Coke Zero Sugar once again, but the reason given this time around was vague and confusing. According to the company, they wanted to optimize existing flavors and existing ingredients. Whatever that meant, it resulted in another minimal alteration to the flavor that humble cola drinkers will likely never notice. Okay, so let's strip away all the marketing buzzwords and catchy and less than catchy names. What are the actual differences between Diet Coke and Coke Zero Sugar? Well, the answer to that can be broken down into 4 main categories: flavorings, sugar replacements, caffeine content, and phosphorus content. As previously mentioned, Diet Coke doesn't really taste like regular Coke, whereas Coke Zero Sugar comes pretty close to the original. Unfortunately, it's a little hard to say why, thanks to the fact that the formulas for all 3 drinks are highly protected trade secrets. No, really. Rather than copywriting the recipes, which would eventually expire and make the recipes public knowledge, Coca-Cola keeps their formulas locked up tighter than the train they plow through polar bear country every Christmas. The company has actually stopped doing business in certain countries rather than reveal its formulas. But while the formulas are secret, Coca-Cola is legally required to list most of the ingredients on the can, so you can make some educated guesses. For example, among its flavoring agents, Diet Coke contains citric acid, which, according to the Coca-Cola Company, is used to provide tartness to the flavor profile, and also happens to be the most widely used organic acid in the food industry. Coke Zero Sugar, however, uses something called sodium citrate instead. Sodium citrate serves the exact same purpose as citric acid, but it's safe to assume this difference in ingredients accounts for some of the overall difference in taste. Otherwise, both products hide their flavoring ingredients under the catch-all natural flavors. So beyond the tartness agents, your guess is as good as ours. No, really, leave a guess in the comments. When it comes to sugar replacements, both Diet Coke and Coke Zero contain aspartame. If that sounds familiar to you, it may be because you've heard that the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer deemed it to be possibly carcinogenic back in 2023. That sounds pretty scary, but you probably don't have to worry about it too much. The WHO, the WHO, also deemed things like aloe vera and gasoline fumes to be possibly carcinogenic, and experts agree there's likely little to no danger posed to the average consumer. That said, we stress the average consumer. Everyone has that one friend who drinks enough diet soda to clean industrial machinery. But whereas Diet Coke is sweetened only with aspartame, Coke Zero Sugar contains a second sweetener called acesulfame potassium, which is typically used to mask bitter flavors in beverages. Acesulfame potassium also contains less caffeine than aspartame. So while neither drink is caffeine-free, Coke Zero only has 34 milligrams of caffeine per 12-ounce can, while Diet Coke has 46. Like many diet products, a little bit of speed makes all the difference. Finally, there's phosphorus. Pretty much all colas contain phosphorus via the inclusion of phosphoric acid, which, long story short, acts as a preservative and helps maintain carbonation. The catch is that if you ingest too much phosphorus, it could decrease the amount of calcium your body absorbs and eventually lead to bone loss. And if that's not bad enough, it also interferes with your body's absorption of iron, zinc, and magnesium. In other words, it could eventually lead to acute diet soda skeleton. Given all that, it's worth noting that Coke Zero Sugar contains 54 milligrams of phosphorus compared to Diet Coke's 27. For most people, this still isn't a big deal. But if you have kidney disease, or you're on hemodialysis, or are considered a risk for osteoporosis, you might want to steer clear of both. Even given all of those differences, however, as far as anyone can tell, neither Diet Coke or Coke Zero Sugar is really any better or worse for you from an overall health standpoint. And experts seem to agree that whether you should buy one or the other really just comes down to which taste you prefer. All of this applies to diet and zero-sugar sodas made by other brands as well. So if you're wondering if Diet Pepsi is better for you than Pepsi Max, or if Diet Dr. Pepper is any different than Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar, well, now you know.
It's perfect, Daddy.
Today, you can get Coke Zero Sugar in a number of varieties, including cherry, vanilla, lemon, peach, raspberry, cinnamon, lime, mango, orange vanilla, cherry vanilla, caffeine-free, and more. There have even been limited edition flavors like Oreo for the boldest warriors among us. Of course, not every flavor is available in every market, but if you're determined enough, we're pretty sure you can get your hands on whichever you want. As for the future, in 2021, Coke CEO James Quincey announced that Coke Zero Sugar was already the company's biggest driver of growth, and he expected it to remain so for years to come. So it looks like it'll be sharing the spotlight with its sleeker sibling for the foreseeable future. Just don't expect them to start sharing bunk beds anytime soon.
You like guacamole?
So what do you think? Do you prefer Coke Zero Sugar or Diet Coke? Or does another diet soda have your heart? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other weird history food videos.